Welcome. This is your Need to Know. This is an episode recap, so there will be spoilers, sweetie. Music by Sisters AI Rhythmic. Check them out on YouTube.
This is your Need to Know.
Spoiler, sweetie.
This is your Need to Know.
Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're taking a look at the 5th episode of Silo Season 2, Descent.
And we'll be drawing on some of the great discussions from our favorite Silo online communities.
We'll be tapping into the wisdom of Reddit, specifically our SiloTVSeries and RTVPlus.
A lot of interesting observations about this episode. Really gets you thinking, doesn't it?
Yeah, and for listeners tuning in, you're here because you want to dive deep into these details, fan theories, hidden meanings, all that.
So let's get started, shall we? One of the most striking things I've seen popping up online is the discussion about pacing this season.
Definitely noticed that too. Are the storylines moving too fast, too slow?
Right, exactly. It's interesting how viewers are divided on how the different storylines are playing out, Some feel like it's dragging, others think it's just right.
I think a lot of the frustration is stemming from the contrast, right? You have this really slow burn with Juliette's storyline.
Versus the kind of like bam, bam, bam escalating drama back in Silo 17.
Yeah, lots of viewers wanting to see Juliette back in the thick of things, especially with all the chaos unfolding back home.
They want to see her jump back into the action, right?
Right. But it's almost like we're watching two separate shows playing out at different speeds.
Yeah, it's an interesting narrative choice. Maybe the writers are trying to build suspense for her eventual return, but it's risky. Some viewers could lose interest if it feels too disconnected.
It's like dramatic irony on a whole other level, Juliette's working to stop a disaster that her silo doesn't even know is coming.
It's a problem that only she's aware of at this point.
It makes her isolation feel even more intense,
Absolutely. It emphasizes her detachment from everything happening back home. Makes you wonder, is this slow burn a deliberate choice to build to a big reveal, or are the writers taking a gamble that could backfire?
Good question. Some viewers are enjoying this gradual unfolding of information. They appreciate how it allows for more character development and world building.
That's a good point. I think it gives us a chance to really get into Juliette's head and see how she's processing all this new information, and what it means for the future.
Okay, so on the flip side, we have Sim's wife, Camille. Her actions, especially helping those fugitives escape, have sparked a lot of debate.
Oh, definitely. Everyone's trying to figure out her angle.
Some viewers are really scratching their heads, Like, why would she do that? Especially knowing her husband, knowing how ruthless he can be and how it could destabilize the whole silo.
Yeah, it seems out of character unless, as some are suggesting, she's playing a much longer game.
Right. There's a theory that she's intentionally trying to undermine the new guy in charge of judicial.
Yeah, by creating chaos, she could be paving the way for Sims to step right back into power.
It would definitely explain her less than cautious actions. She wouldn't be the first character in Silo to pull strings from behind the scenes. And speaking of mysterious figures, we got to talk about Solo. Remember that photo Juliette found? The one with another Solo?
Oh yeah, that threw everyone for a loop. It's clear there's a lot more to him than meets the eye. And then his reaction to the name Trina. Come on, there's definitely something he's not telling us.
Lots of speculation about that. The main theory seems to be that the Solo we know, maybe he took on the real Solo's identity way back during the rebellion.
That's a fascinating theory. It would explain his strong connection to the vault and its secrets. He's been guarding them for 30 years.
Exactly. And if you think about the parallels between him and Bernard, both raised by powerful fathers, it makes you wonder if Solo's story might be echoing Bernard's in ways we haven't even considered yet.
Makes you think, doesn't it?
While we're on the topic of mysteries, can we talk about Knox and Shirley? Those mechanics? Talk about a daring escape, winching themselves down the outside of the silo. Like, seriously, wow.
It was edge of your seat stuff.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, a lot of viewers are questioning the realism of it all.
I get it. A fall from that height, even with a winch, you'd think.
Yeah, it would be game over. Some fans think the writers could have made it a bit more believable with some safety measures, Maybe a slower descent or something.
On the other hand, some people are pointing out that the whole premise of the show requires some suspension of disbelief. We're already dealing with an impossibly deep silo.
Yeah, true. The Benz issue alone, right?
Right, exactly. So Maybe we need to allow for some creative liberties for the sake of the story.
It's an interesting debate.
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line between keeping it real and making it exciting?
I think regardless of whether it's totally realistic, it does raise an important point. This is a society that drives people to risk their lives for a chance at freedom.
What kind of place is this where people are so desperate to escape that they'll take a gamble like that?
Exactly. And then we have Bernard. I was really struck by his reaction to discovering that separate power source.
You mean the one for IT in the tunnels?
Yeah. Do you think he genuinely didn't know about it?
With Bernard, it's really hard to tell. He's such a master manipulator. Some viewers are convinced he orchestrated the whole thing.
I wouldn't be surprised. He's always a few steps ahead, carefully controlling information, isn't he?
Yeah, IT holds so much power in this world. They control the communication systems, the data, basically the reality that everyone else lives in.
Speaking of control, let's talk about Patrick Kennedy. A lot of viewers were confused about who he was.
Yeah, he's a blast from the past.
Right. He was actually really important in Juliette's story in season 1. He's the one who helped her access that hard drive, the one that showed the truth about the outside.
Right. The one that started it all. And to think, we all thought he was gone after Sims forced him to.
Firebomb the police station.
Exactly. Now he's back, and it just adds another layer of, you never know what's going to happen in Silo.
And speaking of surprises, what about that scene where the IT guy just, effortlessly repairs that ancient hard drive?
It did seem a bit too easy, didn't it?
That drive was old and damaged. Some people were pointing out how unrealistic it was.
Some of the viewers with IT backgrounds were not buying it.
Maybe it would have been more believable if they'd shown a bit more of the process, how data recovery actually works.
Yeah, make it a little more realistic. I think viewers appreciate those little details.
Absolutely. Makes the world feel more real. Okay, but before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, we have to talk about that ending. Juliette collapsing just as she's about to head back into the tunnels.
Total cliffhanger. Talk about leaving us hanging.
Initially, a lot of people were speculating about radiation poisoning,
But those who've been paying attention, remember, her injury goes all the way back to that fall in season 1.
Right. The trash chute incident.
It just shows how the writers are weaving these past events into the present. Actions have consequences, and in Silo, the past is never really gone.
Absolutely. And it leaves us wondering, how is that injury going to affect her now? Especially with what she's about to face back home.
Oh yeah, things are definitely about to get interesting. Yeah, it definitely adds a sense of urgency to the whole thing. And speaking of Juliette, let's go back to all the mysteries surrounding Solo and his identity.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. Lots of interesting theories floating around out there.
It's really got people talking.
Yeah, it's like everyone's trying to piece together this puzzle.
Definitely.
Especially after that photo, right?
The one with a different Solo. Yeah, that really threw a wrench into things.
Right. And some viewers are pointing out some pretty interesting parallels between him and Bernard,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how they were both raised by these powerful figures in the Silo.
Right, both carrying this legacy of secrets and authority, but they seem to be handling it in completely different ways.
They really are. Bernard's all about manipulation, working within the system to gain more control, right?
Whereas Solo is more like a lone wolf, guarding knowledge, almost like he's protecting something precious.
And one viewer even suggested, maybe the Solo we know is actually the son of the original Solo.
Oh, wow, that's an interesting idea.
It would definitely explain his emotional attachment to the vault and everything in it, especially his reaction to hearing the name Trina.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if he's not just guarding some historical relics, but protecting a personal legacy, like a family secret.
It adds this whole other layer to his character, doesn't it?
It really does.
Makes his motivations more personal, maybe even more volatile.
It's like, what if he's torn between this legacy built on deception and this duty to protect the truth as he understands it?
It's a complex situation for sure, and it definitely adds fuel to the debate about whether he's ultimately an ally or an enemy.
I mean, we just don't know yet, do we? It makes you think, what role did his father play in all of this? The events that led to the current state of the Silo.
It's one of the big questions looming over this season.
It is.
And the fact that people are so invested in figuring out Solo's past just shows how well the writers have crafted this character, full of mystery.
Absolutely. They've given us just enough to keep us guessing, and that's what makes it so intriguing.
Exactly. And it's a good reminder that in Silo, nothing is quite what it seems on the surface. There's always more to the story.
And speaking of things not being what they seem, let's talk about Knox and Shirley and that daring escape of theirs.
Oh, man. Talk about a heart-stopping moment.
Winching themselves down the outside of the silo like that? I mean, seriously, how did they even think of that?
It was pretty wild, wasn't it?
But it also raises some big questions about the kind of place the silo is, you know?
Right. Like, what drives people to such extreme measures?
Exactly. What are they so desperate to escape from? And what are they hoping to find out there?
It's a powerful testament to the human desire for freedom, even when the odds are stacked against you.
And it really highlights those cracks in the silo's carefully constructed reality, doesn't it?
Like, not everyone is buying into the official narrative.
Yeah, some people are willing to risk it all for a chance at something more.
It makes you wonder, what else is hidden within the silo? What other truths are waiting to be uncovered? And how will those truths, once they're out in the open, change the balance of power?
And speaking of power, we have to talk more about Bernard.
Oh, Bernard. He's always up to something.
He really is. I mean, he's often portrayed as this mastermind, pulling strings from his position in IT, but is he really just a villain?
It's tempting to see him that way, isn't it? With all his manipulation and control over information.
Yeah, it's easy to just label him as the bad guy.
But some viewers are suggesting that maybe he's operating from a different set of principles.
Like maybe he actually believes he's doing what's best for the silo.
Right, even if his methods are, let's say, morally questionable.
It's like, does he truly believe he's preventing chaos and maintaining order? Or is he just driven by a thirst for power?
It's that ambiguity that makes him such a fascinating character, you know?
It really does. Like, you can never quite figure him out. And it keeps us guessing, what's his ultimate goal? Who is he really loyal to?
I don't think even he knows the answer to that sometimes.
And speaking of things we don't know, let's circle back to that hard drive repair. Remember how some people were pointing out how unrealistic it seemed?
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Like an engineer just magically fixing this ancient, damaged hard drive?
It did seem a bit convenient, didn't it?
Yeah, but maybe it's not as far-fetched as we think.
Right. What if the silo's technology has evolved in a completely different way than we'd expect?
It's possible, right? Maybe they've preserved some knowledge that's been lost in the outside world, or maybe they've even made advancements in areas we haven't even considered.
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
It challenges our assumptions about what progress looks like.
It does. And it adds another layer of mystery, doesn't it? What other technological secrets might the silo be hiding? And how could those secrets change things for the people living there?
Oh, those are great questions to keep in mind as we watch the rest of the season unfold.
Speaking of mysteries, I wanted to touch on something a lot of viewers noticed. Juliette's injury at the end of the episode.
Yeah, a lot of speculation about that.
A lot of people initially thought it was radiation poisoning.
Right, but remember, she was injured back in season 1.
The trash chute.
Exactly.
It's a clever way for the writers to tie the past and present together, isn't it?
It really is. It shows how actions have consequences and how the past can come back to haunt you.
And it adds this layer of vulnerability to Juliette's character, you know?
She's not invincible, that's for sure.
And those lingering effects of her injury, they could definitely affect her mission.
Especially with everything that's going on back in Silo 17.
Right. And speaking of things back in Silo 17, we need to talk about Patrick Kennedy.
Oh, his reappearance. Definitely a surprise.
Some viewers were like, wait, who is this guy again?
Understandable. I mean, we all thought he was gone after that whole firebombing incident.
Yeah, remember he was forced by Sims to do it.
And now he's back.
Mhm.
It just adds another layer of unpredictability to the whole situation.
Like, who else might be out there lurking in the shadows with their own secrets and agendas?
We just don't know, do we?
It makes you think, is Patrick an ally to Juliette? Or is he a potential threat?
He's like a wild card.
And his presence alone, it's like it throws a wrench into that delicate balance of power, you know? It adds even more complexity to all the alliances and betrayals that are already happening.
It really does. And it speaks to this larger theme that runs throughout Silo,
What's that?
that the past is never truly buried.
It can always come back to bite you, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps us hooked. We're always wondering what's going to happen next, who's going to betray whom, what secrets are about to be revealed.
Oh, before we move on, I have to ask you about Sims insisting on being called Rob now that he's the judge.
Oh, I thought that was hilarious.
It's like this guy has seized all this power, but he's still hung up on his name.
It shows this insecurity beneath all that authority, you know?
It's a good reminder that even in a dystopian world, human nature doesn't change that much.
People are still driven by ego, ambition, all those things.
And that's what makes these characters so relatable, even when they're doing things that are morally questionable.
Yeah, they're not just stereotypes or plot devices. They're complex individuals making tough choices in a world that doesn't give them a lot of options.
And that complexity is what makes Silo so much more than just a typical sci-fi thriller, you know? It really makes you think about human nature, about societal structures, about the choices we make when we're faced with uncertainty.
It's a show that gets under your skin and stays with you.
Yeah, it definitely makes you reflect on your own choices and the paths you take in life. And, speaking of paths and choices, we can't ignore the elephant in the room, all this talk about Juliette's storyline and how slow it's been.
Yeah, a lot of viewers are getting impatient, wanting her to get back to Silo 17 and confront all the stuff that's happening there.
I think it's important to remember that her time outside the silo is not just about, getting back home.
There's a bigger picture here.
Exactly. It's about her gaining knowledge and experience, things that will be essential when she does eventually return. It's almost like a quest for enlightenment, She's gathering this deeper understanding of the silo's history, the truth about the outside world.
Information that could be the key to changing everything, breaking those systems of control that have been in place for so long.
Think about it. She's the only one who's actually seen the world outside the silo. When she gets back to Silo 18, she'll have this unique perspective that could completely shatter everything everyone else believes.
Yeah, could really shake things up.
It's like she's a prophet returning from the wilderness, bringing a message that could either save or destroy her people.
That's a powerful way to put it. It makes you wonder how she'll be received,
Yeah.
Will they welcome her as a hero? Or will they see her as a threat?
It's a good question, and I think the answer might depend on what happens in Silo 17 while she's away.
Yeah, things are definitely heating up back there.
Oh, yeah. We've got Sims trying to regain power, Camille scheming behind the scenes, Bernard pulling strings from IT.
It's a volatile situation, that's for sure.
And then you have Knox and Shirley risking everything for a chance at freedom. It really highlights the desperation some people feel,
Absolutely. That longing for something more, something beyond the walls of the silo.
So with all this going on, we're left wondering, what kind of world is Juliette gonna walk back into?
Will she be able to share the truths she's uncovered?
Or will she become another victim of the silo's power struggles?
It's a question that keeps us all on the edge of our seats. And it speaks to the brilliance of this show, It's more than just sci-fi. It's about human nature. It's about the choices we make, the things we're willing to fight for.
It makes you think, it makes you question, and it definitely makes you want to keep watching to see what happens next.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final question.
Okay, what's up?
If you were in Juliette's shoes, facing a potentially hostile environment back home, would you still go back?
Or would you choose a different path?
Maybe join Solo in his search for answers.
It's a tough question, and it gets to the heart of what this show is all about, The pull of home, the desire for truth, the choices that define who we are.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.
This is your need to know.
Whispers and shadows, muffled by concrete. Forgotten faces pressed into grimy street. Fuel for struggle, swallowed by night. Unsung stories, fading from sight. Voices rise, but walls stand tall. Deaf ears ignore their call. Orchestral play, crescendo of anguish hidden from light. Crumbling dreams beneath towering steel, shattered hopes crushed under fortune's wheel. Flip it, diggity, frayed and worn. Voiceless masses tattered and torn. Voiceless spoken, thoughts unexpressed. Soundless cries from oppressed. Unheard, unheard, silence screams in vain. Unheard, unheard, ignorance of pain. without shelter or home. Invisible ink on society's page. Voiceless actors on life's grand stage. Extended debris. Tap, tap, tapping on soundproof glass. Lip syncing please to a different mass. Mouthing words, no sound escapes. Screaming silence, no one relates. Echoes fade into oblivion's embrace. Songs are heroes lost without trace. Melodies abstract, unheard refrain. Harmonies alive, wrapped in chains. Unheard, unheard, silent screams in vain. Unheard, unheard, ignorance of pain. Unheard, silent screams in vain. Unheard, unheard, ignorance of pain. Listen closely to city's beating heart. Amplify whispers to roar. Tune in frequencies of unsung song. Hear silent chords all along. Can you hear them now? Unheard, 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 unheard. Whispers and shadows muffled by concrete. Forgotten faces pressed into grimy street. Fuel for struggles swallowed by night. Unsung stories fading from sight. Voices rise but walls stand tall. Deaf ears ignore their call. Unheard, unheard, silent screams in vain. Unheard, unheard, ignorance of pain. A cacophony of silence, deafening roar. Invisible millions knocking at closed doors. Symphonic desperation, orchestral plight. Crescendo of anguish hidden from light. Crumbling dreams beneath towering steel. Shattered hopes crushed under fortunes. Threadbare dignity, frayed and worn. Voiceless masses tattered and torn. Words unspoken, thoughts unexpressed. Soundless cries from oppressed. Unheard, unheard, silent screams in vain. Unheard, unheard, ignorance of pain. Discordant whispers harmonize despair. Muted melodies float through stagnant air. Rhythmic heartbeats, syncopated fear. Unsung anthems no one will hear. Forgotten footnotes in history's tone. Nameless faces without shelter or home. Invisible ink on society's page. Voiceless actors on life's grand stage. Extended debris. Tap, tap, tapping on soundproof glass. Lip syncing please to a different mass. Mouthing words, no sound escapes. Screaming silence, no one relates. Echoes fade into oblivion's embrace. Heroes lost without trace. Melodies abstract,